What's up, everybody? Emperor John Kill 3D Gaming here with another video, and I must say, it's been one hell of a weekend. And all I have to do is ask Capcom one question. Capcom, if this is how you are planning to do your Resident Evil 4 remake, well, damn. You kind of removed any doubt that I had for you doing that, because let's just say, Resident Evil Village, you were a shock to me. You are one hell of a shock. Being able to somehow tie in this new series with a new character and tie this game to all pre-established lore, but without throwing it in your face. I mean, this game is possibly one of my favorite Resident Evils, and that's hard to do behind Resident Evil 2. Because hell, like, people say 4 is their favorite. No, this one is so far my favorite because, yes, the elephant in the room is this is very similar to Resident Evil 4, but the difference here, where Resident Evil 4 was 70% action, 30% horror, this is about 60% horror and 40% action. You would think it's 50-50, but in some areas, the horror does get you. This game is, I think, what Capcom has been always wanting to do with Resident Evil, because, little side note in history for everybody, the original Resident Evil was supposed to be a first-person game, and now that Capcom's able to do that with Resident Evil 7, and they did that now with Resident Evil 8, it just shows you that Resident Evil can work in both styles. And as for the character of Ethan, you know, I had a lot of criticisms about him, but after this game, I can kind of understand why he was created. He's very similar to characters that are introduced for the audience. Why do you think we never see his face? The character of Ethan at this point in this game solidifies that, is that he's us. Ethan is the audience. Ethan is the gamer. We're seeing this world through Ethan's eyes. This is why we don't hear or see a lot of remnants of the old games unless we see documents or Easter eggs that only a fan would spot. And Capcom, you did really good here. And mind you, what you're seeing now is footage from a PlayStation Pro version, and it runs pretty well. It's just like where recently games like Cyberpunk had on their previous gens quite the blunder. Here, it plays just as good, if not a little bit better, than Resident Evil 7. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some hiccups in the road. I've live streamed the full game. It took me about 10 hours to beat just playing through with little exploring. Now I'm playing on New Game Plus and doing more exploring, and hell, I'm trying to beat my record and beat it within 4 hours. But at least you can carry your stuff over from game mode to game mode, your increases, your ammo, everything, which is, again, Capcom, that was really smart. You're extending the replay value of this game, because here's the kicker. RE-verse, which I'm also looking forward to that, because I'm one of the very few that likes Resident Evil multiplayer and see that it has potential. It's just that, I'm telling you, Capcom, you gotta give people Resident Evil Outbreak. I know you want to do the competitive scene, but give people more of a casual Resident Evil multiplayer experience, which I think what RE-verse is going to do. And right now, unfortunately, the application is not available till the middle of this, like probably June or July, so I can't talk about it, but I will when I get the opportunity. But for now, Capcom really threw all their eggs into this basket, because most of the criticisms I have with RE7 is answered here. This is, I wouldn't want to say an open world per se, but you can backtrack galore like classic Resident Evil, and the map here is bigger than it was at the Baker's estate. The characters are interesting, the House Lords, and yes, even the how do I say this, voluptuous Lady Dimitrescu, which we've been saying Dimitrescu, but her name is Dimitrescu. We've been saying it wrong this whole freaking time. Every character design, even the details in the characters, this just shows you the RE engine is one of Capcom's greatest achievements besides the original Resident Evil game. this RE engine really takes the characters we know, like, because, you know, the big point, ball point in this game, you know, spoilers, yes, you're going to get the answers for what Chris had done. And hell, it's a fucking twist that I did not see coming, because I'm thinking, there is no way on God's green earth you're going to take one of my favorite Resident Evil characters and turn him over like that, like, turn him bad. Because if anybody that knows Chris will not do that. The only thing that I had going for me was I was thinking he was under control, very similar to Jill Valentine, where Wesker had the mind control device, and I was thinking, going as far as saying the application image for this game showed Chris's face and then half of it as a werewolf. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe he's under control because he's got a werewolf infection, and he's only doing this to be promised a cure. But no, this fell, the revelation behind Chris, Mia, and Ethan, it falls under old school Resident Evil. This has a very similar ending to Resident Evil 1. Like that kind of twist. Where if you know the twist, you know what I'm talking about. It has a very similar twist to that. And this ties to the established Spencer's mentioned. I'm not going to tell you where, but Spencer is connected to this. They give meaning behind the umbrella symbol itself. The red parts that you see, which we always think maybe that's blood or whatever. Yes, it's blood. But the symbol itself represents the four lords that you see in this game. Now, I'm not going to spoil those sections, but let's just say they give you flashbacks to enemies past from Resident Evil. That's for sure. You're going to feel like you're playing the good aspects of Resident Evil 5 and 6, because yes, there is good aspects. People might tell you there's not, but there is. And the good aspects of 4, while keeping the horror of 1 and 2 intact. Because I'm not going to count Remake 3, because Remake 3, I even dropped the ball. That game is just meant for speedrunning purposes. But this game can also be the same thing. You're going to want to go off the beaten track. You're going to want to explore what's out there. Every little thing could help you out. Treasure maps. Finding different rooms. You know, stuff you couldn't get to the first time because you could go back. And I want to say this. The character models. Capcom, this is the most detailed you've ever been, especially when it comes to the human characters that you meet, human survivors, to the human-looking enemies, such as the Four Lords, Lady Dimitrescu, Heisenberg, things like that. But the monsters, like the Lycans, see, that's so far, that's an interesting enemy type that I want to talk about real quick. I didn't think that they would go that far to include a werewolf-like creature. But if you guys read the Resident Evil comics before the, excuse my burp, if you read the Resident Evil comics, you know that they had a werewolf before the whole mansion incident. And the mansion incident, you'll get file references if you can find them. If you go out there hard enough and find them. This is how you balance Capcom. This is how you balance the horror and the action you've always wanted. This game does not alienate the fans. This game is in fact for the fans. This is for a combination for the truth. It's just like what I said about Mortal Kombat. This game is a bridge. Like, I noticed that recently. It's like developers and filmmakers are starting to finally find that bridge of bringing old school fans and new school fans together, because a lot of people who are now getting into Resident Evil are in because of the Resident Evil remake that came to the previous gen, then the Resident Evil 2 remake, Resident Evil 3, playing the ports of 4, 5, and 6, and Revelations 2, now up to 7 and 8. So at least everybody at this point would have been able to follow the franchise. Yes, maybe some, like myself, didn't get, because I was already born, but I was too young during its inception, to the series inception, but I got into it when we got to the early 2000s. I love Resident Evil, even enough to admit that yes, there's bad games in the series, but even there is something for, even in the bad games, there's something for a Resident Evil fan that you find. But this one, it checks all the boards. It checks what it needs to be a Resident Evil game, because a lot of people are like, why are they going in this, like, it's almost supernatural style? But that's what you would think until you realize, okay, actually scratch that. Most of this game, yes, it has ties to BOWs, and everything can be explained through the biology of, obviously, because there's always a virus or there's always something at the center of these incidents that happen. But there is one part of the game that I question. Capcom, did you have anybody from Team Silent work on a particular section in the game when it comes to one of the House Lords? I'm just asking, because one part of this game feels like PT. PT on drugs. Do you understand me? I was freaking the fuck out on live stream. I was actually panicking. Be surprised, I was able to do what No Male Gamer did, and I was able to think with the brain in my head rather than the head in my pants when it came to dealing with the vampire hoes. I took them all out without a problem. Now, that's also what I wanted to talk about, the difficulty. Because even on a harder mode, the game is still fairly easy. But this is what I'm talking about. I think this is more so made because it is challenging, don't get me wrong. I played it on casual, starting on standard, played a little bit of hardcore on New Game Plus, but I just want to say that the difficulty this time around, I don't know if it could be that I'm just so adept at playing Resident Evil, or this game is trying to be like, okay, we're going to try to ease fans into what is difficult about the series to see if they can take the challenge. Now, sorry, I got a stuffy nose, allergies. The world itself, like this, I want to say that this takes place in a Romanian village, somewhere in Romania, because it has that vibe. I'm a history buff, per se, not like a scholar or anything, but I paid attention in history, and I've watched fucking historical documentaries. This looks like something you would see out of 16th century, maybe set only with a few modernizations, but this looks like something out of the ancient times of Romania. You know, when the legends of vampires and werewolves and demons and everything like that was strong. But I do like that Resident Evil can take inspiration from the legends and myths of the area, because you can't go through this game and not see connections to real life. You can't see within the Lycans the connections to werewolves, revenants, which are the European version of zombies. Those are basically, I gotta say, this time they balanced where, I remember in the other games, enemies would use weapons, but they used them with such intelligence. See, if it's a zombie using a weapon, you're more in fear because you don't know how it's going to use the weapon, because it's slumping towards you. Yes, it can be taken out, yes, but you don't know what attack pattern they have. In the other games, the enemies kind of give off an attack pattern that you can study. So, kudos to how Capcom handled the difficulty. Now, don't get me wrong, the AI in some areas, especially in the Lycans, they have one thing about Resident Evil enemies I never understood, Capcom, and I don't know if this is just a staple that you keep in Resident Evil as a charm, or somebody over there is not doing their job, but it comes to the enemies' AI, like the Lycans. When I'm in a town, besides the parts where they all want to swarm me, for the most part their AI does work, but then when, let's say, you're coming out of an area and they're spreading throughout the village again, because the village works as your hub world for you to search, find what you need, go to the merchant, which I'll be talking about him in a little bit. I want to say that the AI with the werewolves is mixed. Now, the Revenants, they work the way they're supposed to, but I don't know if that's their official name, but I'm calling them Revenants. The zombie creatures you find in the cellars or in different areas. The Lycans themselves, they are threatening. Don't get me wrong. I mean, hell, I think somebody at Capcom hates Ethan's hands, because in the last game he got his hand cut off, reattached. He got his foot cut off, reattached. He got his fucking 2 fingers bit off, reattached. Got his right hand sliced off in this game. I'm not gonna tell you at what part, but re-fucking attached. I swear, somebody at Capcom has a medical marijuana card, because they're trying to tell you that greens heal everything. And you know what, Capcom? If you believe that, and if you're having Resident Evil give you that message, then hell, you're probably one of the better developers that's still around, despite questionable decisions. Now let's talk about the Duke real quick, because I was 50-50. How are you going to match the charm and dark humor of the merchant from Resident Evil 4? Because it's always like you got to pay attention to the dialogue. But the merchant here, slowly throughout the game, he won me over, and I was happy to see him every time I was in a deep situation and I would run into a save from, he was there. And I was happy to see him. He actually, unlike Resident Evil 4 and Resident Evil 4 and this one, it's funny how it took 4 games in the main time, like 4 games later in the main timeline, to get fair prices on ammo, weapons, and supplies. And now there's even hunting, where you go out there, hunt fish, hunt chicken, hunt boar, sheep, little things like that, to crafting ingredients to permanently increase your health, increase your reflex speed, reload speed, and you earn the old Capcom CP, which is what it's called throughout these games, and go to the bonus store and unlock unlimited ammo, unlock the mercenaries mode, which that makes a comeback. And I think they made it more skilled this time around, because it starts off easy, but you have to get triple S's, I think, or double S's to at least unlock the next stage and unlock different weapons. Because right now I'm trying to beat that mode to completion at double S so I can unlock this fucking... They actually have a lightsaber. That's what I want. I will go through this game on New Game Plus on a stream with a fucking lightsaber if I can get it. Now, one thing about I want to say something about the demo real quick that actually changed my mind in the main game, where I said that I did not like at least the portion of the castle that they make you search for in the search through in the demo. But then when the castle, at least in the areas that you need to search, when it's all opened up, between dodging Lady Demetrica, who she works kind of like Mr. X if you didn't hear Mr. X stomping and walking after you everywhere. She is very quick and fast. The same with her daughters. That's why I think she is one of the most unique villains of the series. It's like, damn, you actually crafted a vampire that makes sense within the biological viral design of the biohazards that are in this game. But all the marketing, I question. I thought she was gonna be the main, at least stick around more until the end of the game and you face her toward the end. But no, I mean, she's one of the very few first bosses you defeat. But she does set the stage for what you are going to deal with. Because I was less excited just to see her ass shaking around and walking that I didn't get distracted. But I was afraid when she was coming after me, because I'll tell you what, the bitch can take a good chunk of your health. Lady Demetrica or her vampire daughters can take a very good chunk portion out of your health. But their boss battles are designed based on the creature they're supposed to be. The daughters are affected by sunlight, which is the only time you can defeat them. Now, Lady Demetrica, that's a different thing. She's not affected by the sunlight. She's kind of like the female Dracula, where you have to take her out through a different means, or face her in a way that's more like exposes her power. Now, don't get me wrong, when she's in the daylight, her power is weakened significantly. So I think that's what they were going for. She's basically the female Dracula of this game, because this game has so many horror tropes, the good horror tropes, that you'd be like, well, Capcom, you know, you have taken us away from the old Umbrella, the old biological warfare of the Nemesis, Mr. X, Raccoon City, hell, the Ouroboros, the Las Plagas, the C virus. But when it comes to creating a new virus, Capcom is always good at making up a virus when it comes to Resident Evil. I give it that. Each virus, though they seem very similar and could do the same thing, which is horribly affect the body, but I mean when it comes to its enemy characters. The virus always does something unique to them, or whatever infection they could be dealing with makes them into a unique boss fight. Because I thought I was going to face maybe like a demonic bat creature with Lady Demetrica, but I was wholly fucking wrong. It feels like Castlevania met goddamn Van Helsing when I fought her towards the end of her portion of the game. Now, that's a lot of complaint. That's the only really one complaint that people are having that I'm seeing is the game's length. I don't see it that bad, because a Resident Evil game is as long as the player makes it. That's just how it is. You know, if you're an avid or pro player, yeah, you're gonna blitz. If you're a newcomer, it's gonna take you maybe 3 to 4 days it depends how much time you want to put into it, and if you're a completionist and want to search everywhere, for a completionist it will take you 15 hours, for 50-50, 12, for just straight story, 10. So I gotta say, that's average for a Resident Evil game. It's just, it all depends on how much you want to put into this game. Now, the returning feature, which I just mentioned earlier, the returning feature is Mercenaries mode. I don't know what Capcom has plans. Maybe they're going to do what they did for Resident Evil 2 and 3, which is free updates instead of, because there's no season pass. That much I can say for sure. There is no season pass. So Mercenaries just puts you against every foe you face in the game, just to see if you can unlock unlimited ammo for certain guns. You know, at least there's certain rewards you get for going through this mode. And I've been trying to go through this mode in the time that I'm taking a break from doing New Game Plus. So it does give you, Capcom really wanted to give players replayability, because at least since RE-Verse isn't out yet, they really did throw all their eggs into this game right here. They really wanted you to know, like, look, we understand people were concerned of where we were going with RE8, because RE8 was, even to me as a Resident Evil fan, I was just like, look, you're kind of pushing it, Capcom. You're pushing this supernatural vibe, at least what I thought was supernatural, because another history lesson here, Resident Evil 4 was originally going to be a supernatural game, but since that didn't make sense, it turned into Devil May Cry. But here, it shows that you can, on the surface, make people believe that it's supernatural, and then by the middle and end of the game, it starts to weave into that familiar Resident Evil vibe. That familiar, oh shit, this is a virus, we need to be fucking careful and know what we're getting into. And that is what I could say about Resident Evil 8. Resident Evil 8, so far, I'm playing it constantly. Even after I beat it, I'm still playing it. I'm looking forward to RE-Verse, that's the one thing that would have made this review, you know, feel more complete. But even I feel that my review here, despite going through everything I've experienced, you know, ups, downs, lefts, rights, this video still feels incomplete because I haven't got a chance to play RE-Verse. Now, like I said, people for some reason have not gravitated towards Resident Evil multiplayer. And I can understand why. Capcom is focusing, like I said, too much on the competitive front. They need to make a casual online experience. Let players survive the horrors together. Like, throw them into an environment where they have to find puzzles while fighting off enemies and bosses that can come in at any point, or that could, kind of like Mr. X. For example, make Resident Evil Outbreak. Take how the police station fell. Throw players in there trying to survive and get out of the police station, but we see the collapse of the police station, the overwhelming number of zombies, you know, have one of the tyrants chase you. It can be done. It can be done. But as for right now, Resident Evil 8, Resident Evil Village, I don't understand why people, that's another thing that I'm confused about. People say, oh, it doesn't say Resident Evil 8, so it's just Resident Evil Village. If you look at the Roman numerals in the word village in thumbnails, pictures, trailers, the Roman numerals say 8. Because I remember that was a huge thing that was going on. People didn't understand what to call it. But if I was to rate this game out of all the Resident Evils, it's a solid 9. It's a solid 9, despite some AI inconsistencies, only slow down in 2 sections. But other than that, it's a great experience. Be sure to like, subscribe, favorite.